All right, this is what your sine curve should look like after you plot every point from the unit circle, right? Every y value from every point on the unit circle. Now, we should connect all of these points, right? But I was afraid it would look pretty ugly if I did that with my sketch pad, so I just left them as points. But you should go ahead and connect these points. Now, as far as where these points are, and I mentioned in the directions to make sure that we used an accurate scale. So I put 1 and -1 on here. Well, that would mean obviously 1/2 would be in the middle. So at pi over 6, the y coordinate is 1/2. But then at pi over 4, the y coordinate is square root of 2 over 2. As a decimal, that's about 0.707. So that would fit in right about here. Pi over 3, the y coordinate is the square root of 3 over 2. That's about 0.866. So that would fit in right about here. Okay, so to be as accurate as possible, this is what our graph should look like. Now, as far as the other questions, okay, the maximum value, remember whenever we're talking about maximum and minimum values, we're talking about the y value. So the maximum value that occurs is 1. The minimum that occurs is -1. The zeros are the x values where the graph crosses the x-axis. So here that occurs at 0, pi, and 2 pi. The beginning and end, okay, I just put the actual coordinate points on there. So we're beginning at the point 0, 0 and ending at the point 2 pi 0. And then the period, this is something that we haven't talked about yet, and we'll talk more about this later. But period is just the length of one cycle. Now, technically, this graph could keep continuing. Right? We could go to an angle that's greater than 2 pi, right? We could just continue on around the unit circle again, or we could go in the negative direction, right? So technically, this graph would continue on forever in both directions, and it would just continue repeating. So the period, we say, is 2 pi. It repeats itself every 2 pi, okay? So that is it. Go ahead and move on to the back.